So the people, that's basically we are speaking of imagination. So whenever there is conflict between the two, here is the winner, your imagination. Let me illustrate this, because this, as I say in the morning, you brought with you a perception of reality. Now I want you to know something by this example, that the reality is in your head. Is when the error that you generally commit, that you confuse it with the reality outside. That's the problem. Now let me point out. Suppose I put a 12 feet long steel board, 12 inches wide, on this carpet, and I say, ladies and gentlemen, please line up. We're going to walk on this steel board without stepping off onto the carpet. And you will look at me as if I'm very stupid. And say, Rooshi, it's the simplest thing to do. 12 inches wide, we can walk, no problem. Is that correct? I insist that you walk on it. So in order to oblige me, you will do so reluctantly. You did it. It is the easiest thing to do. Everybody agreed? So intelligently, empirically, experientially, logically, every tully you can think of, you have succeeded in doing so. Now I say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put this board in between two buildings 40 stories high, and we're going to go from building A to building B walking on the same board. How many? What happens? Logic goes, say goodbye, right? What takes over? Your imagination. You look down and say, oh my God, how many fractures in my skull? Who will do the post-mortem on me? I hope I get run over by a Mercedes and not a Padmini. 1,001 thoughts, and you'll be paralyzed. Is that correct? Now that when you are fully convinced, ladies and gentlemen, all of you are convinced you cannot do it, I'm going to convince you otherwise. There is a fire in building A, ladies and gentlemen, and that happens to be the only exit. Would you do it? Yeah. What happened? Same board. What changed? Your perception. It happens in your mind. It's nothing to do with the board. It's what I want you to appreciate. But we commit this error in our life many times. First thing, in order to change yourself, you got to change the way of looking at it. The attributes you give to the reality. Suppose you are here to better yourself, and you are working at a job that gets you 5,000 rupees a month plus perks. And you say, I want to be the managing director instead. And something in you will tell you, I cannot, I don't deserve it, I will never make it. That is your perception of reality. And that's your perception of yourself. First thing you must do is change it, that part. Why not? Why not? And that will work. That's the first step. It occurs here before anything outside changes. You see? Most people change the outside stuff. Most people who lose weight, they become fat because they are still thinking fat. See, because a fat person who has lived a lifestyle of a fat person, he goes and buys particular size underwear. He can do so many activities, he cannot do so many other activities. Is that correct? Whatever it is. Once he loses weight, the moment he goes buy underwear, even if it is 3 inches less, he will still buy the original size by sheer force of habit. And then he will eat to fit. Let me give you another example, analogy. Suppose you have driven a huge long car, big Mercedes or something all your life, and somebody gives you a Maruti to drive, and you're looking for a parking spot. What would you look for?
Bigger one.
Bigger one. Is that correct? Because in your head, you are driving a Mercedes. Because that perception is in your head. It has nothing to do with... And if you are driven a Maruti all your life, and if you drive a Mercedes, when you come to park, you'll hit the car in front, one in the back. Make sense? There was an experiment done, a very interesting one in the States by Barber and Barber, in which poor people's children were given $1 coin which was available once upon a time to play with. And then they were asked to describe the size of that coin. And they necessarily described to be bigger than the original size. The same coins were given to rich people's children, and they described it to be smaller than the original size or actual size. Which means the perception was colored by their economic upbringing, conditioning. You understand what I mean? So reality is not something outside. It is your perception of it which defines it for you. So you say, oh, I am always like this. That is your perception of yourself. I cannot become better. I cannot get a better job. I won't pass that exam. You know, we have all these sort of things about it. I don't deserve more money than what I'm making. Right? The profession I'm in, nobody makes more money. You know, there are some people I've heard say that. You know, and I know people in the same profession making 10 times as much. To the extent there is one book bestseller right now, In Search for Excellence, and the rejoinder later on, A Passion for Excellence. Huh? There is one guy, one of the millionaires in California in there, I believe, who is a garbage man. He's a millionaire collecting garbage. He says, I love garbage. He made millions. Who would think that you garbage business, you'll be a millionaire? You see the point? And to that extent, he is considered one of the greatest success stories of this time. That he's written up by all the scholars in a book which made a bestseller. Think of it. So you must change. You are here with some goals in mind that through self-hypnosis I want to achieve this. The first step to doing it is to change the perception. Decide, yes, I can achieve it. That's the first thing you must do. Yes, I am capable of achieving it, whatever that is. The rest is easy. Then you will have a technique today to achieve just that. But start looking at it differently. Start thinking about it differently. Start, if you want to lose weight through self-hypnosis, start thinking slim. Start thinking of the things that you would do if you lost weight that you cannot do now. If you want to better your memory through self-hypnosis, then start thinking of the things you will be able to do that you cannot do now. Don't say I have a good memory and that's it. You know, don't make it that vague. Make it precise. Because there is a rule, which I'll tell you. Only good questions give you good answers. The trick is not in answers. The trick is in asking the questions. Vague questions give you vague. If you ask me, Rooshi, tell me something about sitar. I say it's an instrument. That is as good an answer as any other. Is that correct or not? I mean, it doesn't tell you much, does it? So instead of that, if you say, Rooshi, I noticed that there are 2 layers of strings in the sitar. That's a specific question. What do they do? Why 2 layers? I say, well, then I say, well, the strings underneath are known sympathetic vibration or taraf strings, and you tune them to different notes of the scale. And so when you hit that note on a main string, that string sympathetically vibrates, giving a new dimension to that note. So you got some specific information or quality information because you asked a quality question. Is that right? This is important. Because you have come here to achieve some goal through self-hypnosis. And so I want you to be clear about the process. That's what we're talking about now. Clarify what that is. By details, by adding, or in journalism we call it fleshing it out. It's a bare skeleton, flesh it out. You know, add some matter to it. You know, add some flesh to it, so it become life. All right, to continue. So conditioning, belief. Then the next is imagination. So the law of reverse effect. Write down what is the law of reverse effect. Please write down what is the law of reverse effect. The harder you try to do something, the more difficult it becomes. The harder you try to do something, the more difficult it becomes. Now again you've been told, try hard, try hard. What I'm telling you is otherwise. Huh? I had a patient once came to me. He said, I tried to stop smoking several times, it doesn't work. So I asked him, I said, listen, where do you live? He said, I live in Bombay. I said, what kind of business you have? He said, I have this tannery business, leather stuff. And there's a tannery in Madras, I have to travel to Madras, blah, 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 back and forth, and so on. I said, well, how do you travel? He said, I go by plane. I said, good. I said, tell me this. You went to the Santa Cruz airport, and you asked the person behind the counter, when is the next Airbus going to Madras? And if the person behind the counter says, you see that Airbus, sir, back there, is trying to go to Madras. I said, would you buy a ticket? He looks at me and says, what do you mean trying to go to Madras? Of course I wouldn't buy a ticket, he says. I said, why not? He said, either it goes or it doesn't go. What do you mean trying to go? I said, did you ever think about what you just told me? You're trying to stop smoking. Either you stop or you don't stop. What is this? Oh my God, he said, I never thought about it that way. It appealed to him. It's a linguistic play that insight that he got at that time. Does it make sense? Even from English language sentence structure point of view, when you say, I'll try to do this, try becomes the verb, to do becomes infinitive. So you try infinitely. Huh? You invite somebody for a supper tonight, and he says, I'll try to come. What does it mean to you? I won't. You see? It's a non-committal thing. I want you to commit to it, whatever you want to achieve. That's important. Don't say, I'll try to do this. So you're going to learn a technique of self-hypnosis. Don't say, I tried and it didn't work. Do it. Don't worry about whether it works or doesn't work. Just decide that I'm going to waste 20 minutes of my life every day on myself. So you don't have to worry about anything. You just say, I'm going to waste it on myself. I deserve 20 minutes of my time for myself. And I'm going to waste it by lying around. When you have that attitude, I guarantee it will happen when you least expect it. But if you lie down and say, I'm doing self-hypnosis, is it happening? Is it really self-hypnosis? I feel very tense. I mean, this is... You see what I mean? It wouldn't work. And this is what most people do. They give up at this time. Because as I pointed out to you earlier, it's a new habit for your body and for your mind. And new habits take time to learn. New habits take some time to acquire. But spend that time. Go through that transition period because the rewards are fantastic. Okay. So law of reverse effect. Harder you try to do it, more difficult it becomes. Some people must have experienced they couldn't sleep and they tried hard to sleep. What happened?
They can't sleep.
They can't sleep. Precisely. Because instead of that, if they say, okay, I'm not able to sleep, I'll go read a book. If you start reading a book, you will fall asleep reading a book. But if you stay in bed and toss and turn, it will never come to you. It will elude you. Sleep will. It must have happened to you, forgot a name or a dream. And you sat down trying to remember it. Could you? You say, oh, forget it. And you go to buy a panwala. Go to buy pan at the panwala shop. Name pops up in your mind. Oh, this. You were least thinking about name at that time. And it comes to you. So trying does not mean success. So stop using the word. I'll try to do this, or I tried. At least. Okay, next is cooperation. Cooperate with yourself. What do I mean by you say, of course I paid this money and I've come here to learn, of course I'll cooperate. I don't believe you. Because you know something? Hardly 10% of the people are disciplined enough to do something for themselves on their own. Hardly 10%. Most people need somebody telling them to do something. See, discipline is the worst thing. Time is never a problem. Discipline is always the problem. You will work for somebody whom you hate 2 hours overtime every day, for which you don't even get paid, but you will not spend 20 minutes on your time every day by yourself. to better yourself.